Great Friday evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast. We are your hosts for this evening's discussion. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach. Beside me, you have the Uncle with the Funk, no one other than Mr. Garfield Martin himself. Below me, you have my good friend Christopher McClellan from Across the Table with Christopher McClellan, also known as the Angry Guy who is still trying to learn. He's on the other side of the table from me, though, but that's all right. And beside him, you have our good friend Tawami Gaddy, who is known as the son of Timothy, or better yet, the available man. Gentlemen, how are you doing on this fine Friday evening?
I am sore, but I am well.
Yeah, I'm well. I'm not sore, but I'm well. Happy.
I know it.
Yeah. I wish I was sore, but I'm well.
Hey, man, I got it.
I would not wish this upon anyone.
Just to clear up any confusion, Chris is sore from working out. He's in gym. So I just want to make sure we get that out there.
That's the only way I would be referring to wishing I was sore. Is working out. I'm just putting that out. I understood.
We got you. Listen. We just want to welcome everybody as well. Looks like we got Mr. Roland Walker still with us. He's not only with us in spirit, he's with us in chat. So good to see you, brother. Also, I want to welcome everybody else to the show. Listen, if this is your first time joining us, look in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, identify the icon, put your cursor on the screen, and just go ahead and click and submit. Go ahead and subscribe and join the channel. We're here every Friday night at 8 p.m. And listen, we are here to give you the best of what we got. And again, I just want to make sure that I am not missing anybody in the chat. So again, Crystal Everett, Cassandra McKenzie, Michelle Ray. Let me see who I'm missing. Bernadette Simmons. I think I skipped some. Christian Barrow. Good to see you. And welcome to this evening's conversation. Listen, if you guys have joined us last week, we started off talking about a great conversation. But however, before I dive into that, I want to kind of make everybody aware of the membership program. So again, the Empowering Perspective membership program is your gateway to sustained progression and self-improvement. Through personalized resources, supportive community, and thought-provoking content, we empower you to transform your perspective, unleash your potential, and embark on a journey of continuous growth through this e-learning platform. This is not just a membership, it's a commitment to evolving your worldview, enhancing your skills, and enriching your life. Discover the power within. Join the Empowering Perspective membership program. If you have not been aware, just if you're on YouTube, look up under your screen. You're going to see the little join button. Click there and you'll get all the information. If you're not on YouTube, just check the show notes. We put it in there as well. Man, that was a lot. All right. So now we can dive into the show. So as we said before, last week we talked about navigating difficult conversations, part 1. This week is part 2. Now, just to give a real quick rehash or a recap of what we talked about last week, because again, it was good. First, we talked about emotional discomfort. Then we talked about fear of conflict. And then we ended the show talking about risk of damaging relationship. And for those of you who were with us, that's when the great conversation about, what was it? The ultimatum? Yeah. We talked about ultimatums. So that's where we ended last week. So again, what is the big problem? No, man, we ain't gonna go into ultimatum tonight. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank God, because I do not want to go down that rabbit hole again.
But if it comes up, we got to entertain it. I'm just saying.
Okay. All right.
That's all right. All right. So, what is the problem with difficult conversations? Man, listen, if you are anything like me and you've been involved with difficult conversations, it just seems so hard at times to have a civilized conversation with two opposing points of view. Emotions get involved, past traumas get involved, people get triggered, start yelling, and all this other stuff. So the issue is, how can two civilized adults have a conversation where they do not agree, but can still exchange ideas in such a way that shows, for the lack of better terms, that they're adults? And that's what we're talking about here. So the first point that we're going to uncover tonight is the lack of skills and experience. Now, I think it kind of goes without saying, it's easy to see, if a person doesn't do a thing well, then they must be lacking in skills and experience. So, gentlemen, the first question I'm going to throw at you tonight is could you share insight on the particular skills that you believe are most critical in these challenging situations?
Empathy. I, I think you have to be able, when having it, whether you're the one bringing up the topic or the topic's being brought to you. I think both parties have to be able to empathize on the other part. You have to be able to hear clear enough that you can start to see and feel and envision what they are trying to express, whether in response to what you're saying or whether when they're bringing an issue up. So I think part of the problem with when it comes to hard conversations is we always look at things from the lens of us, and I can't come to, I may be have a tough shell when it comes to certain situations and may think some things just are not important. But if you bring it up and it's important to you, I can't come to the conversation with that, with the mindset of, well, I don't think it don't bother me, so it shouldn't bother you. You got to have some level, I believe, of empathy in order to reach some common ground in these conversations.
I think one skill would be to understand that the important conversation is about behavior and not you. It does not, if simply because I am bringing something to your attention or something is being brought to my attention, it does not mean I am a bad person. I just may have messed up. It is a behavior thing. It is not a personal attack on you. It is understanding the behavior and getting clarity, differentiating the two. A lot of people I have seen cannot do that because the behavior is so ingrained in who they are that they take it as an attack instead of removing themselves and saying, okay, this is what I am doing. Does not mean I am bad. I am just doing this quote unquote bad thing that is causing a rift and it is being brought to my attention.
I'm going to go with the umbrella of effective communication. Um, and that's a lot, and that can be broken down into so many other smaller skills. But I think one of those skills is being able to listen to understand. I know a lot of people want to say, oh, listen, don't listen to respond, but think about that for real. Like, really listen to try to understand. I think it's another thing what goes into being the effective communication is being objective when you're having the conversation. And then lastly is understanding that the other person have their I'm trying to read my chicken scratch now. The other person has their way or their perspective at the same time. You don't necessarily have to agree with it, but they have a different perspective. I'm going to steal something from Coach that we had talked about after the show last week. And one of the things we had talked about, Coach gave a great analogy. I'm not going to steal his thunder, but the importance that, when you're having a conversation, most of the time, in many cases, you're seeing it from your side, and then the other person is seeing it from their side or their perspective. And I think that it's important that in order to have effective communication, you don't necessarily have to understand it from the other person's point of view, but you need to try to um, you can't dismiss it at the same time, because they have their perspective and their perspective is their reality. So I think that all those things kind of fall up under the umbrella of effective communication, along with a whole bunch of other things like body language. Like, body language is huge when it comes to making these and having these difficult conversations, because you could say something and you're being calm or whatever about it, but someone can still be triggered from that, and their body language can, you know, oh, you know what I mean? Something like that. And you like, man, we just having a conversation. What's with all the body language and stuff like that? And sometimes those things can cause the communication or the disagreement be that much more difficult to have. So I think, like I said, overall, the umbrella is effective communication.
So I like all of your responses. I got empathy, um, some people fail to realize that you're addressing their behavior, not attacking the person. Effective communication and understanding that everybody has their way of communicating and their perspective as well. Um, I, I love all of these. And really, you guys probably stole like every time I chose one, you guys stole it, and then somebody else, just Chris, you stole mine. I'm gonna be honest with you, though, because I really do believe that that's the issue that a lot of people run into. They can't remove themselves out of because we exist in that space where it's about what about me, what about me, what about me. So they have the conversation through the lens of their ego, not necessarily understanding that the situation itself, that we're talking about the situation and the behavior that caused the situation, not the person itself. So since I got to change mine, I want to say that mine would be the fact that we can't ice this conversation down to one talking point. And I tell you what I mean. I am talking about the fact that Uncle Junior has on a fish hat. Right. I'm just picking on you right now, bro. So I'm talking about the fact that Uncle Junior has on the fish hat. And then for whatever reason, Uncle Junior, he's offended, right? And this didn't happen in real life, by the way, just in case anybody got any strange thoughts. So he gets offended because I'm talking about his fish hat, and goes back to what Chris said. He knows that you're talking about me now, not necessarily me wearing the fish hat. So then he turned the conversation around. Well, you did this, right? So the talking point keeps moving throughout these difficult conversations, and you can't stick to one particular talking point. Therefore, you never reach a resolution. And the issue is that all of these points that you guys brought to the table is a facet in this conversation that becomes a moving target. And so, within that space, like, what do you do? Like, how do you respond to a person that's a moving target? How do you respond to a person that doesn't know how to like exercise empathy in the midst of them having their own the other person having their own point of view, or don't understand how to listen well? They hear one side of the conversation, but they don't listen long enough to hear the entirety of the statement. Therefore, they only gravitate to one thing they heard, and they're responding to that, but they missed the main point, which was back here. Like, how do we deal with people who can't remove themselves from that conversation?
You don't.
Mm,
You don't. You cannot change the other person. That is a part of the ego thing. You cannot change the other person. If you bring up Uncle Junior's fish hat and he says, all right, well, what about your little Nautica shirt? We're not talking about my shirt. We're talking about your hat, because your hat, for just to use it as a analogy,
right.
your hat is the behavior. My shirt is just my shirt. You just need that to deflect. If you cannot stay on the subject and you have to point out, this is another one of those things that I used to talk about. If I bring something to you and address a behavior that you are doing that is a detriment, and I am attempting to have a serious conversation, and you bring up something I did to make what I did worse than what I am bringing up, you do not know how to hold yourself accountable. I cannot be around people that cannot hold themselves accountable.
Mm.
So you don't. You remove yourself, no matter how bad it hurts, no matter how much you love this person. You remove yourself.
I like it, gents.
I just simplified pretty much the same thing he said, which is when what I notice, and when you get into a conversation, a heated discussion, argument, however you want to classify it, and I say this is what you've done to hurt me or to bother me or to insult me or to embarrass me, and they respond with, well, but you did. I realize that they are actually admitting that they've done this thing, and the fact that they have a quick response of what I did to cause it means that they had intention to hurt me the way they did. More times than not, there might be an exception. That's cool, but that's what I realized, is that they have had intentions to hurt me the way they did. And if then there is no resolve on their side, I'm with Chris. Like, you have to act accordingly now. Now that I understand you and your intentions towards me, act accordingly. If you stay, I think sometimes you ask to be in that situation.
So can you really not deal with people? You know, um,
Yes.
the reason why we have to get better at having difficult conversation assumes that we're going to be, we're going to have difficult conversations, right? So I think that in relationships, when you're with someone, things come up in a relationship that may not have been discussed or thought about, or even was an issue at some point when you start dating. And now they are, and now you have to talk about them. For example, you take couples that have been married for 20 years
And wear fish hats.
and wear fish hats, right? Those people who wear those fish hats from 20 years ago, there are certain things that happened in their relationship that they never had to deal with in year one that they have to deal with now. There was no cell phones. There was no women posting half naked pictures on the internet 20 years ago. So there was never a thought to have a conversation about that. Now here we are. We're in 2023, and we're just using it. There's a hat, and we need to have a conversation about the hat. The hat may not be inappropriate, and now we have to have the conversation. So I think that yes, it's okay to kind of write off people who are trying to challenge us that we may meet or may be co-workers of and not have to deal with them. But I think when we're in a relationship, even with men, that we have to understand that there are going to be some difficult challenges, some difficult times, and we're going to have some difficult conversations. But it doesn't automatically mean that we just throw everything out just because. But Chris, I definitely get you. New people that come in my life that don't add any value and don't have anything to do, and they want to challenge me and be disrespectful and different things like that when we're having conversations and stuff. I'm not going to have the difficult conversation with them. I'm just going to exit stage left.
So
Garfield,
I, I I think we're about to go the same route. So go
go
ahead.
ahead, Tawame.
Yeah. I no, because I really got it. I'm asking this in question form because not only do I need to hear your answer, if your answer is what I think it is, you got to explain to me how. So you could deal with someone who doesn't care that they hurt or bother you, even though that they, and when you bring it up to them and they deflect, meaning they intend to continue to do it, you can stay in that situation.
I'm not saying stay in the situation, but I think that there are ways to handle it. I don't think you just throw out the whole relationship. I think maybe in that incident, you take a break and you move away and you come back and have the conversation. So, in to what Chris's point is, I think yes, moving away, we're not having a conversation right now because you can't handle it. You know what I mean? And I think that's another reason why, Coach talking about the goalposts and just different things moving through the conversation is why so much is best to stick to that talking point and be as direct about it. You know what I mean? Instead of beating around the bush and speaking all in this gray area and giving 15,000 analogies. So,
Yeah.
Garfield, I
um,
completely
uh,
understand what you were saying as far as having to being with somebody for a substantial amount of time and then something new comes up and you have the conversation about it. I
mhm.
understand that aspect of it. However, if we have that conversation and you bring up something that I did in order to make what you did smaller or insignificant, or as Tawame said, give you an excuse to do it, I am leaving you. I am leaving you where you stand. You cannot do that. It is not fair. I am not attacking you. I am attacking the behavior. If you cannot hold yourself accountable or care enough about the situation to hold yourself accountable, because again, it is not about me. It is not about the other person. It is about us. If you cannot do that for us, then there is no us. I am
and
walking away.
and to add a little honesty to the context, we are, this is hearts of men for the most part. For the most part, there are some nagging men out there, right? I'm not going to negate that, right? But for the most part, for men, it's normally a buildup. It don't become a crucial conversation until it's either a buildup or it has been addressed before.
But see, that's a problem right there in itself, right there. There shouldn't be a buildup. You shouldn't be sitting on information that you need to tell your wife or that your wife needs to tell you, or that any difficult conversation, any relationship shouldn't be sitting on the information. I understand moving it. Maybe this ain't the best time. Maybe, maybe it's Christmas. Maybe we have it 2 days later or something. I understand messing up the mood and the vibe. However, I do not believe in just sitting and holding on information. So if there's a buildup and the guy sitting on information, I think in itself that's a problem. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did. I
No,
apologize.
no. You didn't cut me off, but I just don't see. There's a lot of things. I don't care what most men can say they do, but I don't care. I believe that most men, by the time we bring stuff up, we don't walk through our relationship just, hey, we need to have a crucial conversation because you did this one thing that I haven't seen before. Is when things become a pattern for us, because typically if something is a once in a while type thing, we're good at brushing it off. And that's what I mean. So when it becomes a pattern, then it becomes a problem to us. Then when we bring it up, and if it's brushed off, and I'm saying that
I can see
not
that.
just for,
I
yeah,
agree.
and not just for us, also for the women on here to understand that's how men operate. When men bring stuff up and it becomes a crucial conversation, it's serious to him because we're not going to nag about everything that goes on.
I agree.
And half the time, we are told that we are not allowed to talk or have feelings anyway. So if we bring it up, oh, you're damn right, we're going to talk about this, and we are going to fix this because I had to bring it up, and I am a man. I am supposed to be stoic, and I am supposed to not feel anything. But if I feel something in my gut, then it's valid, and we are
and it,
going to discuss this.
and it's for the betterment of the relationship. It's not to stroke your ego or not to manipulate or get something you want. It's for the betterment of the relationship. We bring stuff up because we really want a solution to whatever problem that we're addressing. We don't just we bring it up. Like I said, we want a solution. We don't want to just talk about it and divert and deflect and spend a whole bunch of time. If it was up to us, we'd be like, hey, look, here's the problem, A, B, and C. What kind of solutions you got? Here's my solutions. Boo, bop, the bam. Here's how we're going to do. Let's move on. Let's get on with our life. What I
And
mean? We
it's
really don't
over.
want to sit and be emotional for, hours and stuff like that. We want to just be over with. You know what I mean? And go on and get back to life.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Yeah, it's Tawame, when he was talking just now, I think that brother was talking specifically about me, like to the T. Like I'm that person, I can see a thing happen and I won't say anything about it because I always consider the human factor. Maybe it was just a mistake, right?
Mhm.
But once I see it more than once, now is grounds for me to have a conversation about it. And the worst thing to do at that point is to tell me that what I observed was not accurate to my eyes. Like I've observed it more than once. I've watched it more than once. It happened. And you're sitting here and you're giving me type of excuses. Well, my intent was, I don't really care about your
Give
intent
me some
when I am telling
examples.
you, yeah, when I get when you ask me for an example right now? Oh, okay, no,
No,
give me
say, give me some examples when
right,
all
right,
of this
right.
stuff. If you remembered all of these times I did it, give me the examples.
Right. And so the worst thing to say, I didn't mean to. No, no, we're not talking about that. I'm talking to you about the impact. Stop talking to me about the intent, right? And then don't get to the point to where now you start addressing other little things around that particular talking point. These are all of the things that you are here. Go ahead, Chris. I think you got something else.
Oh
Oh, you just
no, I
exhale.
was just I am listening because I agree wholeheartedly with what you were saying.
Yeah.
You preaching now, yeah.
Oh, I apologize, but I'm just saying this is reality, and I'm speaking about me. This is I can't, I can't speak for anybody else, but it seems as though we have shared experiences in this particular talking point, and that's the concern. The concern is that it's not one person. It is literally like if you line 10 dudes up, 9 times out of 10, 9 out of these 10 dudes is going to say, "Yep, that's me right there." That one person going to be like, "Well, you got to look at it from this way." We're like, "Get off the boat. Get off, just get off the boat. We don't even want you around no more."
We're
So,
tossing you off the edge
like for real.
because you would be the guy to poke the hole in the bottom of the boat and
Yeah,
everybody drown.
absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I love you guys' point, and I think it's at a certain point we got to recognize it moves from being a lack of skill. This kind of goes back to Tawami's question, Unc. It moves from being a lack of skill to a lack of desire. You already know that you're struggling with the thing, especially if I share it with you that this is my observation. For you not to do anything about it, that's a decision that you have made. Listen, I want to be completely transparent when I say this. Doing nothing is a decision. That's what we need to understand. So if you choose to do nothing, you just made a decision that's going to impact us. Because the next time, and I always use the analogy about food, right? So I don't like my peas touching my rice. Not true. I just use it as an analogy. So I don't like my peas touching my rice. So when you do it the first time, okay, I share it with you. I don't necessarily like my, just so that you know, right? And so the second time when it comes, I'm like, hey, just to remind you, I don't like my peas touching my rice. When you do it the third time, you don't care. So now I'm not eating there no more. I'm going someplace else where they actually listen. That is reality. I can't make this up. And I try to like simplify it as best I possibly can. No one is going to beg you. I'm going to say it like this. Nobody's going to beg an adult to behave. It's that simple. It's so simple that it sounds childish. I can't make this up. And then the funny part about it, here's what you hear. I'm not a child. Really?
Well, grow the hell up and quit acting like one.
Stop it. Stop it.
The behaviors speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I work in the elementary school. I see a lot of the same behaviors. It's hard for me not to say that's childish. You know what I mean? I see it every single day. You know what I mean? So when I see people on TV and interact with certain adults on Facebook, I'm just like, man, we teach this stuff to kids. Like it's very childish. Like we teach kids how to respect each other and how to make friends and how to get along with others. Like those are kindergarten level skills. So if you as 25, 35, 45 are still acting like that, not that you are a child, as was said earlier, the behavior is childish.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, so let's kind of jump into the chats because we got some stuff coming up. Um,
Uh-oh.
so man, let's entertain that. Bring that to the stage. Let's see what we got
Oh
here.
What's in the
boy.
chat?
What's in the
The,
chat? I'm
the most
curious about what's in
empowering,
the chat.
the most empowering chat in all of YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see where we at. We got some great conversations, statements. Michelle said, clear the air, set boundaries, and be prepared to listen to receive, not to respond. Great point. I definitely agree with that. That goes back to the effective communication piece that I think Gaddy brought up. There aren't good or bad people. Oh, that was Uncle Junior. I'm sorry. There aren't good or bad people, just bad behavior. Absolutely. She's laying them down, and it's an exchange between people or persons. Yeah. Uh-oh. Hey, Miss Uncle Junior, how you doing? Good to see you. So I ain't gonna lie, I got a little offended at first, Unc, because she came on the show and spoke directly to Unc and just ignored. You know what I'm saying? I thought we was peoples, man, but now I'm good now. Good to see you,
She out
Shelly.
of
Oh,
town.
oh, she out of town. Okay, I
Yeah.
hope she's safe out there, and make sure you
Yeah,
have a
she'll be
safe
back
trip coming
tomorrow.
back. Let me see where we at. Here we go. Question: what about a parent adult child relationship where the parent is the one that refuses to address the difficult conversation the child wants to have? And she added a little context to be more specific. The adult child is wanting to discuss something with the non-custodial parent. Gentlemen, eat.
I'm going to speak from real life. I am
Use
42
my
years
mic.
old, and I've been trying to have a conversation with my biological father for the past decade and some change because I have acquired knowledge and I am starting to understand. He has yet to reach out to me. My phone number hasn't changed in 15 years. I reached out to him twice and I left it alone. Sometimes some conversations just will not be had, and it is not in your control. It is what it is. It sucks because there are things that I need from him. There are answers that I need from him in order to formulate how I am supposed to move as far as dealing with my custodial parent. There are things that I need from him so that way I can formulate my own thought process on how to move on. But I cannot get them from him because he will not give them to me. I do not know if he is afraid of me. I do not know if he thinks he wants to, if he thinks I want to fight him. I do not know what it is. But, and if anybody is watching this that can get a hold of him, let him know that I am trying to reach out to him. And it is on some man shit. I am not trying to fight. I am not trying to beef. I just need answers. That is it. There is literally nothing that man can give me. I am 42 years old. I am in the third quarter of my life. I am okay. I just need answers. However, I cannot control whether or not that man wants to give them to me. So I have to let him stew on that. And when he decides that he wants to talk to me, my phone line will be open. That is how you must deal with that. You cannot control the other person no matter how much you want something to happen. It is what it is.
I like it.
I go ahead. Whew. So I'm not quite there yet as a father, Chris. And I can't speak for your father. I don't know that situation, but I'm gonna speak for me. And it's gonna seem as if as if it's directed to your response, but it's not. It's just me thinking 15, 20 years ahead in my life today, right now. There are conversations that if my son came to me and said, I want to have this conversation of why you wasn't more available, why you wasn't more present, why didn't we spend more time, why didn't you do this, and why didn't you do that, why didn't we do this? There are answers that I cannot give him without completely making his mother look like trash in this scenario. And because I know his relationship with his mother is is almost unhealthy. I feel where you going. I know your scenario is a little bit different, but that can create a hard scenario. Let me tell you something that really that hurt me. I don't know if y'all keep up with the new Fresh Prince series, right? But there's an episode where Marlon Wayans showed up
It
as
was the
Will
season
Smith
finale of season 1. I
of
remember it.
season, yeah, and and I really want to hear what went down between uh Vi and him, because the moment he mentioned his mother, the father's reaction turned hostile, and then Will automatically got mad because his mother is the one that's present. He has that relationship with his mother and could not hear. And so now his son looks at him even worse than he looked at him when he was absent. So that that is a fear, I believe, of some fathers, because if I tell you the 100 gospel, I might have to, it might have to come across as if I'm bashing the other custodial parent of how they handled this co-parenting situation. And if we are honest, in a lot of scenarios, it gets ugly. The separation gets ugly. They're trying to split the baby gets really ugly in a lot of scenarios. That's not everybody's case, but that becomes a hard conversation to have. And I think men or fathers, even if you call them deadbeat or absent, they're more careful not to bash or attack the other parent. That's my belief. I can't
But
speak for everybody. That's how I see it.
I completely understand that side of it. That is why I always say to anyone who asks me a question like that, I ask them if they are truly ready for what is about to transpire and what is about to be said. You cannot go into that conversation with the thought process that everything is going to be roses and candy, and he is going to say all of the things that you want him to say about your mother. There might be something in there that does not paint your mother in the best light. This is where you must remove your ego and go into this conversation objectively. because you have heard one side your entire life. There's a whole nother side to it, and meshing those two sides will allow you to create a thought process that will help you move on with your life productively. That is what I always say. That is why I am ready for the conversation. I am objective. I understand my mom's perspective. I had it for 42 years. I need yours. And I am willing to sit down and I am willing to listen without me being a part of the conversation, meaning my emotions, my thought process, and everything that I have been taught previously before we sat down. You have to be a very mature adult to want to have that type of conversation. And you have to understand that the non-custodial parent's perspective is not going to be the perspective of the one that was in your house. It is not. And you have to be willing to accept that without thinking that he is bashing the custodial parent or she is bashing the custodial parent. It could be his interpretation of everything.
I
Fathers have
get it.
feelings too.
I get it, and I see it both sides. Honestly, I do. I think that, to Chris's point, I think that, you have to be ready to, both people have to be ready to have that conversation. I think that up front, maybe and I seems like what, Tommy was saying, I understand trying to protect the relationship of the child, even though they're an adult with the relationship that they have with the parent. I understand that. I'm divorced and I have three sons from a previous marriage, and my sons are 27, 21, and 17. They haven't really asked a lot about what things have transpired. However, I can see as a parent, as a father, not wanting to share every single detail that my child may want to know. That's still my child, even though they're an adult. And even though I may not have been in their life, or, in my case, I have been at that point, with the non custodial parent, you don't want to Twami's point, you don't want to sever the relationship that that child may want to have with the other parent. And these are just my own personal thoughts about the whole situation. I understand as a child, and so what I would do is I would approach it and I would say, "Hey, look, son, I there are some things that I'm willing to share with you, but we're just meeting. So there are some things that I may hold back, but as we grow and continue to build a relationship, I may share more, and I may let you know, hey, there are some things that you may not like. So I get both of those things. So I think that, when it comes to non-custodial parent, the parent has an option to not share certain things. And I think that they have a right to kind of judge, in their own mind, what the adult child not necessarily can handle, but what they're willing to share in that moment. You know what I mean? And I think that the child, if they really are wanting to have that conversation, that um nothing wrong with keep pressing, or you know what I mean? Like I get it, like, but you can't make somebody give you information that they don't want. So, but at the same time, go ahead, coach.
No, no, yeah, I'm saying as a person that sits right in between both of your conversations,
Yeah.
right? A person who is in Chris's shoes that wants to have that type of conversation so that you can have a healthier relationship, and then a person who is like you who have children from a divorcee, right? And that was their primary motive, what do you call it? Custodial parent. That's what their primary care giver at that particular point in time. As a person who exists in that space, I offer the olive branch to my children. I allow them, I let them know at any given point in time, whatever it is you guys want to talk about, well, we can talk about it within reason. Just like what you just said, I'm not going to talk about the details of our relationship. That's our relationship. I'm not going to talk about the details of their relationship. I don't want to know the details unless you're in a place where you're hurting and you need somebody to give you some guidance, to comfort you, nurture you, all of that great stuff. So I'm not going to have those discussions. However, for as a child, as an adult child who is looking to have a more fruitful conversation with my father when I went to him for whatever reason. He was just not in a place to have those discussions. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I put forth the effort. I put it out there. Say at any given point in time, when you're ready, I am here to have the conversation so that we can have a better and fuller and more richer relationship. There is no two sides to the conversation. There is only one side to the conversation. That's the side that says relationship is king. When you're trying to defend my perspective and the other person trying to defend their perspective, or they're trying to justify what took place, I don't really care what took place back then. Trust me, I struggled in the space of relationship as well. So what do I look like judging you for struggling in the space of relationship when you was, back then? So that's the key. That's the part that we need to understand. And for those older adult males who are struggling trying to reconnect with their father, if you are walking around in fear for that your child is going to judge you for not managing relationship well as a boyfriend or husband or whatever that looks like, trust me, only thing you got to do is have the conversation that says, hey, I get it, but all you got to do is have enough relationships long enough, and I'm guarantee you're going to mess them up too, because no one has ever given me a blueprint to relationship. Therefore, it's difficult for me to give you a blueprint to a relationship. However, I know when one is, and we can work it out together. I might be a little older and look a little crazy, and you might be more fruitful at it because we're having this discussion. But again, you make yourself, as the older adult male, you make yourself vulnerable for that young male's sake, so that young male can get everything out of life that you robbed yourself of because you didn't seek to learn what it looks like. Now, change the dynamics. Young male, don't go in it, with the sword and the shield out at your father. Remember, he's still your father, regardless of how they behave. I want to make sure I'm saying that. Regardless of how they behave, they're still your father. So you still approach them with a degree of respect and dignity, as long as that respect and dignity is reciprocal, right? That's the key. You don't go in there looking to argue, fuss, and fight. But if they disrespect you, withdraw. I'm still an adult, right? Your time to parent me was when I was a young adolescent. I'm a grown man at this particular point in time. I love you, but you ain't gonna come at me sideways. So let's clear the air, like I think it was Chris said. Let me create some space. Whenever you want to have that discussion, I'm here for it and I'm longing for it. But until you figure out what's going on up here and can receive me as an adult male, that's my take on it.
I like it. I like
Yes,
it.
sir.
Here you go, Chris.
And the
That's why
brother
I
got the
said. That's
and
why
the
I
brother
said what
got
I
the
said about
aviators
being
on too,
objective.
bro. He got the aviators
Oh,
on. I
Chris,
love
yeah.
I love it. I love it. Christian, I hope that helped, brother. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
That is why
That's
I
the
said you
OG.
must go into this. You must go into it objectively.
Yeah.
You cannot go into it with any kind of feeling behind it.
Oh,
It isn't. It. That is a good way to lose. That is a good way to push the person that you are attempting to get answers from away from you. Forget what your mama taught you. Forget what your daddy taught you. If your mom or your dad was not there and they have answers that you seek, go get them.
yeah.
And go get them with an objective mind. Their perspective may seem like, oh, he brought it up. Their perspective may seem like, quote unquote, bashing. I think that is a buzzword. I cannot stand buzzwords. Bashing might be the non-custodial parent actually telling their perspective of the truth of what happened. They are not synonymous. I highly doubt that the non-custodial parent, unless he or she is still immature in age or immature in mindset, I highly doubt that they are going to be out here attempting to make the present parent look bad, because the present parent was actually present. Go get your answers.
Can I address it from a different side, other than being immature? Partially can still, I don't even want to say can still be hurt or whatever the case may be, but maybe just has never addressed. And so you peel back a band-aid over a wound that is 20 years old, it brings back old pain, and then he lash out. What I would say is, at that moment, I wouldn't respond. I would let him speak. Because as an adult, we have to understand now that this is a person. Yes, he's father, but he is a person. And in that initial moment, I would let him go. Now, if every time we talk can't be bashing my mama now, though, this is what we're not gonna do. And that's when I will address and say, all right, pops, can we just not talk about mama no more when we communicate? I just want to talk about us and build our relationship. And if it can't go past that, then and I hate to say it, I would, if it makes me uncomfortable, I would limit my conversation. I don't mean I wouldn't have a relationship with my pops. It's just we can't talk as much because I'm not going to listen to you. Bash, I heard you. You got it out. I felt you, but I'm not going to turn on my and me as a father. I shouldn't expect my child to turn on their mother because I felt she did me wrong or she could have been a better person in this co-parenting situation. That has nothing to do with your ability to love her. If you love her, love her. If you love me, love me. But that's how I would jump at that. I wouldn't go back and say, "Listen, which you better stop talking about my no."
Right.
Like Coach said, that's your pops. So I would let him get it out, and then if it continues, just say, hey, "Pops, can we just not talk about this no longer?"
Yeah. And I want to offer another side to that as well because I don't want to move the pendulum just because a person has a title. I believe effective communication is still the right of every person that is that is in this relationship. So just like we just got finished saying, if you don't have the ability to control yourself, you don't necessarily have the skills, the behavior doesn't look right. What you cannot do is that you can't. I'm laughing at Shell. I'm sorry. You cannot you cannot extend bad behavior at me based upon some unresolved trauma that you had 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so, with that being said, you have to understand that in the space of relationship, communication has a responsibility. I can't say that I want a relationship with my son, but I'm not open to having the conversation that he wants to have, again, within reason. But then, by that same token, I can't lash at my son as well based upon some stuff that I did in my past. And he, he or she, my daughter, he or she may have a different perspective based upon where it came from. You see what I'm saying? So we need to understand that as well. So we must relationship is a relationship. I always say that a relationship is a relationship and communication is communication. When we change it, we don't necessarily believe that. We believe relationship change from place to place and communication changes from place to place. But if that's the case, then how do you get to the point to where you have fuller and richer relationships if you keep moving the pendulum? That's why I say a lot of the stuff that Chris say when it comes down to like child and parent relationship, I agree. But I also agree that respect comes in first. Respect is the thing that exists first, simply because you're my biological. I appreciate the fact that you gave birth to me. But once you get to the point where you start treating me like a person out in the street, that's when I start to withdraw because I do that to people in the street. I don't make myself available to people who talk like me, that talk to me like that. Therefore, I'm not going to do it when it comes to you. No, go ahead.
I agree with you, but I'm going to caveat and going to go a different route when you talk about the respect piece.
Mhm.
I'm not going to respect you just because you are my father, because you did not facilitate the responsibilities necessary to fulfill that role. You do not get that respect. However, I am going to respect you as a creature that was created by the same divine creator that created me. That is the base level respect that everybody should get. But you do not just get respect just because you have a position when you did not fulfill the responsibilities of said position.
You had his side of the story yet?
No, I've been trying to get it for the last decade and a half.
So it could have been totally out of his control. He may not even never know about you.
I will never know unless he says that. That is what I am looking for. Answers. Give me answers, but do not think that you are going to get the fatherly respect that a man who was there would get. I don't know you.
Here's why I said that. I have I have a friend right now. We've been friends since 2010. That's all I'm gonna say. He may be watching this. I don't want to throw all his business on the street, but I'm think he would mind. He is 40. He just met his dad for the first time at the end of the last year. His dad's Puerto Rican. He just went to go visit his dad last week or so in Puerto Rico. He finally met the other side of his family. He got a totally different story about it. His mom had pretty much told him that his dad was a POS and all these different things. And he had a certain
Sounds familiar.
feeling about him. When he got to a certain age, he reached out or whatever, and he got a totally different side of it. And now, like, he sent pictures of, of like him and his dad, and the thing about it is like he's mixed, he's biracial. His dad's Puerto Rican and his mom's Caucasian. So he said when he was growing up, he would always see a bunch of people. He would always be on his mom's side. So he saw a lot of Caucasian people, and he always looked different. But he said now with his family, he fits right in. He blends in. He's like the same color of everybody, different things like that. So I only say all that to say is that, sometimes there are some moms out there who sit on some information and don't reveal everything or push out certain information that may not be factual to save face. You know what I'm saying? And then we come to find out that we've been holding and harvesting all of this information or anger or whatever towards somebody. And then when we come to find out, we was holding for no reason because we didn't even have the other side of the story. So that's was my little piece.
That
And
is
I'm
why
not
I
trying to
said, and
come against how you feel or anything like that.
I completely understand, but that is why I said I'm coming to this objectively. I
Mhm.
cannot come into this with the preconceived notions or the previous teachings or the previous thought processes that I have already had. I do not know this man's side of the story. I need to know this man's side of the story before I can make a decision. And I cannot have an ego about it. I am
Yeah, and
completely and totally objective. Say your piece. I need it anyway.
and just in case any young people watch this, I think we work with Chris enough that I could say this. What Chris is not saying, just in case there's any people out there dealing with this, he's not saying that he will meet his father with the most upright disrespect because he didn't raise him. What he's saying is, don't expect me to come to you and say, "Hey, pops," and "What up?" Act like we have this father-son relationship when we don't. You didn't foster that relationship. We can't pretend like we have that relationship. But I will give you the respect as a man, and we can grow from here on. And I
I will
think so.
give
I
you the
wanted to,
concrete
yeah,
foundation to
yeah,
build upon that so we can have that adult style father
yeah,
son relationship, because we
yeah.
cannot have the father son relationship that we should have had when I was coming up. We cannot have that. That time has passed. I am a grown up. I'm an adult. We need to have an adult conversation, and we need to have an adult father son relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Christian, I hope we answered your question, brother. Again, great question. And y'all know me, man. I derail a whole show for a great question. And that was definitely a great question. So thank you, Cassandra, and thank you, Brother Barrow. Prayers and blessings to you. And I hope that actually work itself out. Um,
I wouldn't necessarily say that that derailed the conversation,
no, 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 no,
because
no.
that is a difficult conversation to
No,
have.
what I'm saying, derail the talking points that I had,
Oh,
but
okay.
I
Never
don't
mind.
mind. But
My
it's still
apologies.
within. No, you good. It's still within context of the conversation, but it didn't. That's what I'm saying. So again, thank you guys for that. Moving on to the next talking point is the uncertainty of outcome. And again, it's just one of those places to where people have issues with having difficult conversations because they can't understand or they don't know what the necessary outcome of having this difficult conversation it is, in my opinion, a controlled concern. So that being said, the question here is what do you perceive as major concerns? I gave mine, so don't steal it. What do you perceive as major concerns when dealing with uncertainty of outcomes and difficult conversations?
I think that I don't know with the uncertainty. I think part of it is I'm sorry. What do you perceive as the major concerns when dealing with the uncertainty of outcomes in difficult conversation? I think people are afraid, and I could be off, and I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I think they're. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to answer it without it being the answer. No, that ain't right. Let me get my words right.
Wait,
I
what?
think what
I'm
it
gonna
is
use that.
hard. People
Trying to
don't
answer
want
it
to
without it
have the
being the
out
answer.
because I had a thought in my mind of like an analogy or like a situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
But
I
then
got
I
you.
was trying to reverse it and flip it and see if it would fit together. So I'll take I'll throw a dart at it and see if I can hit it.
All
You
right.
know, it's like, so and so goes out and and they cheat, right? And they have to have the conversation. They say, you know what, I'm gonna tell so and so about whatever happened, right? I think there's a big fear of uncertainty of what could happen if they tell. Maybe they leave, maybe there's an argument, maybe the marriage is over, maybe you no longer spend time with your kids. So I think one of it is dealing with or having to deal with the possibility of the unknown. You know what I mean? It's like, man, like if I tell her, I want to tell her, I want to be honest, I was drunk. I'm just making this up. This is not me. I'm just making it up as a scenario. I was drunk. I went out and did that, blah, blah, blah. I wish I wouldn't have. I want to tell her, but I want to be honest. But I know that, she already said she was going to leave. She was going to take the kids. So I think sometimes just having that fear of what the outcome could be can cause challenges and where people don't even want to have the conversation. Is that close, Coach? Okay.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You
Okay.
good? You
All
good?
right.
Whew, like right now, I'm a little uncertain because I don't remember what your answer was. So
I was
I'm just
trying to
gonna
answer it without answering.
hey, I'm just gonna close my eyes and throw my dart. Hopefully, I don't hit
Do it.
his answer, man.
Bullseye right in the middle.
Nah. But I really, really do believe that it depends on who we're talking to because I got a bunch of different answers in my head. And the reason why is because the scenario is different based upon who the conversation's with, right? It could be I want to address my boss about some things that he or she does that makes me uneasy or uncomfortable, but I'm afraid of reprisal.
Getting
You
fired.
Yeah. Uh or like you brought up the relationship wise, it could be, and maybe not just I cheated, or maybe I just know he or she might blow up anytime you tell them they did something wrong or you feel like they did something wrong. So I think it all depends on who you're talking to, but I've come to realize, and I really don't know what the end goal answer would be, but I come to realize that the more concern I have about a reaction, the more I care about either the relationship or what's tied to the relationship. Like the boss, I care more about the job or the paycheck than so it causes me to have caution when addressing things with my supervisor, my boss. Relationship. If I didn't have concern or wasn't nervous or didn't have fear of the unknown when addressing my spouse, then do I really care about that relationship? You know, because I don't want the relationship to be derailed over something as simple as you didn't put your slippers where you told me to put my slippers. So you could be messy and I can't, and now we divorce. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like something stupid, and it can really derail my marriage. So I really do think it depends on who I'm communicating with. I don't want to tell coach I don't like that. He put so much shine on his head because I don't want to get kicked off the podcast. And you don't. It shines perfectly. Like it got the perfect texture and equal medium of light. But I was just saying, like kind of like the fish
Mommy
hat
got it.
thing.
555.
Oh my God, I love it here.
It's all good, bro.
Nah, but that's it.
What do you perceive as the major concerns when dealing with the uncertainty of outcomes in difficult conversations? I would say one of the major things is the fear of taking a loss. And that is mainly because most of us do not know how to take a loss without flying off the handle. I am not afraid of taking a loss. I used to work in retail. I worked in retail for a good decade and a half. I used to get paid to hear the word no. It is what it is. I am numb to it. I am not afraid of taking an L. It is what it is. Losses are losses are learning sessions for me. I learn from every loss. And to be honest, I have gained double what I have lost previously. So a lot of times, taking that loss can open up the door to something so much better.
I got an
Absolutely.
alibi, and this is for Chris. I'm just stealing what he's exactly what he said. To sum it all up, fear, fear, and that comes in so many different forms. That's the word that I was looking for when I was talking and rambling. You said fear of the this, it's like, bruh, fear of the unknown. You do not know what that outcome is going to be. Fear of taking a loss, fear of being by yourself. You know what I mean? Fear of losing money. You know, it's a whole bunch of fear of losing your job, fear of not getting a promotion. Like, so many different fears that go into this. Man,
Hmm.
fear for me.
Now, can I give you the sum to the sum?
Please do.
This is the sum to
Please
the
do.
sum. And Gaddy, man, I just want to throw something at you. I'm just
You
saying.
been looking off your paper all day?
No, we was just talking about this last night. That's why I'm throwing something
Oh,
at him. Right beneath beneath or behind the scenes, your programming is the reason why all of this exists. Every bit of it. You have like these negative thought patterns that exist. And it doesn't matter what it has to do with. It can be in a relationship, it can be at work, it can be driving down the street. That primary negative thought pattern that exists in underneath the surface, right? That programming kind of spin these thoughts off. And then you'll get to the point to where you will respond based upon those thoughts. So when it comes down to the uncertainty of outcomes, I knew I threw out their control, but that's where control comes from. Since I don't know what the outcome of this, potential conversation could be, I am going to control the narrative. I ain't going to tell her nothing. So now, since she don't know, ain't gonna be no problem until she find out. Well, see what had happened was I was trying to give you the answer without the answer. You know what I'm saying? And it just happens that way. So beneath you, and I'm joking at that point, but I'm so serious. Like behind the scene, it's just like a computer program, right? So I don't know how old most people are listening, but if you're our age, you remember back in the days, if you want to kind of change the operating system, you had to change out floppy disk. So you had to put this one in, let this run for a while, then pull this one out and pull the next one in, let that one run for a while and pull that one. So it took like hours to change an operating system. The same thing as it does with you. You're not going to change it overnight. It is impossible to change it overnight, but at least you can make a decision for it to change. So those that programming, which started years and years and years ago, I mean, it's still happening today. That's a whole nother conversation. It literally creates the negative programming that exists behind the scenes. I can give you a perfect one. I was just talking about this today. Even with superhero movies, right? There's a negative programming within the confines of a superhero movie. Every little boy at some point wanted to be Superman, but Superman was an orphan raised by poor people, and his arch nemesis was a millionaire. So it is a negative construct that exists underneath it, and we don't even realize it.
And you know what's funny? You brought up Superman. I'm going to caveat because everybody knows that I'm a comic book head.
Yes, you are.
They came out with a story called Injustice, where the Joker killed Superman's killed Lois Lane and his unborn child, because Superman thought he was flying Doomsday out of space, but he was really flying Lois out of space. The Joker made Superman kill Lois without him even knowing it, and so he came down here, killed Joker, and then took over the world.
Are we the only ones that know about that? By the looks of their face,
I don't.
I'm like,
I was
I'm over here like,
listening.
yeah, I remember
I'm,
that.
I don't. I'm
Listening.
sorry, but but that's fine
I'm
though.
just over here sitting over here in my smooth blue empowering perspective podcast shirt.
And we
You know what
appreciate
I'm
you. We
saying? I'm just
appreciate
over
you.
here chilling.
But the thing is, parents, you need to be aware of this, right? Adults, we need to be aware of this as well. But we need to be aware of this because beneath the surface of a lot of these programs, there is a programming that exists, and it exists to put you in a state of negative thinking at some particular point in time. So you're going to always look at the worst of a situation. So I kind of want to inject that again. That's a whole nother conversation, and definitely for those who are in the membership program, we're going to break that down so that you can actually understand what that looks like. Okay, moving on to the next point: cultural and personal differences. I got to smile as I read this. The question is: are there cultural, generational, or gender-based aspects that we should consider when engaging in difficult conversations? Well, I get it. Took his headphones
I
off.
just leave the show.
He snapped the extension cord out the wall and everything. We got about 15 minutes for this question at most.
Yes and no. I
Explain, sir.
think some of these things, the answer would be yes. And I think some of these things, the answer would be no. I think that, like for me, my wife is Native American. She's Navajo. She's from the reservation. There are some things culturally that are different in communicating. So we both have to give each other and have to learn to give each other grace that our cultures are way different. You know, like for example, they say sweater for everything, whether it's a hoodie, whether it's a coat, whether it's a jacket, everything is a sweater, you know. So that's just one of the small things. So when you're getting into having a difficult conversation, it's a lot more. There's different things that are ingrained. I think that, you know, when you're looking at generational, me and my wife have a different. We have an age gap. We have an 18-year age gap in our marriage, and it works great for us. But there are some different things that were taught in different generations that we may or may not be aware about, or that we have to maybe, like I said, give each other a little bit of grace, because there are some things that maybe she understands that I don't, and vice versa. Um, at the same time, I think at the same time, you still have to understand that you still have to have the difficult conversation. And at some point, you have to get over some of those things, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So initially, and in certain situations, the answer would be no. And then, like I said, in certain situations, I think the answer would be yes.
I'm gonna make it short across the board. I say yes across the board. You got to know who you're talking to completely, cultural and not just a black and white thing. And I'm trying to avoid a lot of my triggers in these conversations, uh,
Say it with your
because
chest.
man, I'm trying to listen. This is I'm trying to understand the generation we speaking to. You know, this is censorship era of life. So. Uh, I see your face, Chris. Don't do it. Don't come for me, please. So, cultural is not even just a black and white thing. Some of it is I'm from New York and you from Atlanta. We speak differently. If you'd have caught me fresh from New York, you made it thought that I wanted to argue about everything. No, we just speak a little more aggressively in the city, and in the South, they're not passive. They're actually probably more aggressive and more apt to choke somebody than we are up north. They just speak a little more politely before they do it. All right. So you have to understand that there's cultural differences even in the cultures in America, right? Generational. Uh, I think anybody that says no on generational, they will say no because they're not Generation X. They say I'm not Generation X, but I was raised with them. And little key point: you have to cancel everybody with a platform that's Generation X because they don't give a dang about nobody's feelings. And that's just real. They're gonna say what they mean what they say, and that's the bottom line. If you got a problem with it, oh well. So you have to understand that some things were not meant to hurt you. Some things are meant to to help you. But that's just how Generation X speak. It's blunt. It's flat. Because that's how we were spoken to. You didn't get to. Can you please come and sit down for? No, listen. Get either go out or come in. Either way, you're not gonna waste my AC. So close my door. If you come in this house again, you staying in this house. Don't eat up all my food. Close the refrigerator. Turn off that TV. Well, we need 3 TVs on. Y'all better sit together in the living room and watch the same. Like these are this is completely different than parents now asking get their kids to do stuff. I'm not asking you to do nothing. All right. So that's a generational base, gender based, 100%. We don't even think the same. That's just facts. And I'm running through it. We don't think the same. Anybody who think we do, I'm sorry to tell you, we don't. We operate differently. We prioritize certain things differently. So, um, and that's just, that's me trying to run through it without hitting none of the triggers. So
Okay,
I say yes.
so from what I am hearing, the answer is yes, but it's not. But it is really not based on the conversation itself. It is the way the conversation is tailored. Am I
And
getting it?
who it's tailored to.
Okay.
Who
Like
was
my
yeah.
whole talking point may seem a little, may be different in a work setting.
So it's also based on environment too.
I think so. Like
Okay.
in a work setting, if you're a leader and you have subordinates, like in the military, and and I'm having difficult conversations, I may have to take in consideration someone's culture. I go back to elementary school right now. If you look at certain Asian cultures and stuff like that, some of the students or some of the children don't look at adults in their face, right? But you have an adult or teacher to say, are you being disrespectful? You're not looking me in my face. You know what I mean? Engaging and having a difficult conversation with a child. However, the child is being respectful by not looking at them. But because that adult is not thinking about those cultural differences when they're engaging in that difficult conversation with that child, certain things may be missed. And like I said, sometimes because those adults don't know, they're thinking that the child is being disrespectful when in actuality, they're actually honoring them and being very respectful. But I don't think it should be manipulated or anything like that or used as an excuse.
So you want me to do it now, Chris? You want me to do it? Okay. The answer is no.
Oh shoot!
The answer is no across the board. Communication is
Elaborate, please.
communication is communication. I'm sorry. I am not going to tiptoe through the tulips just to appease your emotions because we're having a difficult conversation. I don't care what generation you're from. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what your culture says. At the end of the day, a difficult conversation needs to be had. And if that's the case, I'm not going to tiptoe through the tulips and sugarcoat my words because what you're telling me at that point is that my emotions are less valuable than yours. So when I get to the point of sugarcoating, don't speak that way. It's the way you say it. No, it's not. It's the way that you receive it because you're what's the word I'm looking for? Now I'm getting in the Gatling lane. I want to make sure I don't use any trigger words at this
You are
point.
unaccountable.
Can I
Bingo.
ask you? Can I ask you a question real quick? So, are you talking about from the person
Damn
receiving or the
right.
person giving?
It's on both sides. Communication is communication. The two
Because
people involved in it is in the environment of communication. Therefore, however the environment is set up for communication, what you'll find is that those people who struggle with communication, they exist in the space of fear. So for you to say that, oh, I'm fearful with having assertive conversations and then blame it on me because I don't mind sharing, here's my worst phrase on the planet, my truth. No, I can't stand that phrase, by the way. I think that's
I
the
hate it.
biggest, yeah.
I guess,
It's one
Go
of the
ahead.
dumbest buzz phrases I've heard ever, but go ahead.
and I'm only bringing it up because I'm trying to make sure I understand where you were going with it.
Mhm.
Because the way I'm looking at it as if you bring to me something I did and I may not like, people like I didn't like their delivery. I think sometimes if I know who you are, like for instance, first sergeant now and the first sergeant when you was a private, two
Mhm.
different first sergeants, right? So if I run into one of your old first sergeants and he says something crazy to me, I think for before I get in my feelings and my feelings get hurt, I think I should understand the era he comes from. He's different.
Why?
Or because that's how what's acceptable conversation that you grew up in or that you were programmed with is different for you. And I can't expect you to change the way you talk because you're talking to me and my sensitive feelings because I was born 20 years too late.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. On the receiving side, I think you have to understand the person that's talking to you. You can't get butthurt. That's why I was going with it.
Well,
So
so no, so to your point, so I'm glad you cleared that up. So the understanding must happen by both people, but in the
Mhm.
midst of difficult conversation, the information has to come out. So once the difficult conversation has to happen, I'm not concerned about what you understand. I'm concerned about helping you to understand the problem that I'm having at this particular point in time. Now, when you turn around and say, "Oh, well, you can't talk to me like that because I'm a baby boomer," no, okay, but at the end of the day, baby boomer, we fixing to have this conversation. I'm sorry. No disrespect. I don't mean no harm. And if I am a little direct with it, I think it's okay. I think this conversation warrants that directness. I'm not disrespectful. I'm not yelling. I'm not cursing. I might be a little anxious, just a little anxious, but it's because of the feelings that is tied to the situation, which, by the way, your behavior probably provoked. And my whole point is, I would give every person what their behavior is asking me for in that moment.
Coach, thank you.
Yes. I told you it was going to be me or you.
I appreciate that because I am going to say no as well. And I am going to say no based off of this. To speak runs the risk of being offensive. So why not just be honest? I can be direct and respectful at the same time. I am not sugarcoating a thing, especially when I am talking to someone who claims that they are a grown up. You should be able to receive what I am saying because you know I am not saying this to disrespect you. I am saying this because something is happening that we need to fix. And I am not going to sugarcoat that. I said this last week. My happiness is paramount, and I refuse to live another day unhappy. We are going to talk about this, and I am going to be as direct, lowest common denominator, and bottom line as I can be, so there are no misunderstandings. You are going to completely get where I am coming from, and then we can go from there. I am not
I
changing a
get that.
thing. No.
And it's not a bad thing either.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Not a
not
bad thing.
and it's not a thing that's intentional to hurt your feelings. It is a difficult conversation. We're not just talking about, oh well, I don't like, the dinner that she cooked. Throw that mess in the trash. I'm not talking about stuff like that. That's totally different. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about a difficult conversation that needs to be had. She done spent up all the bill money and the bill collectors are calling and you trying to figure out where the money went and she walking around with like 15 different bags. We need to have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. This is
Mm-hmm.
not going to be an easy conversation. I'm just what the truth is. We got to get out of that space of catering and tiptoeing around emotions. I've been saying this for the longest, and I'm gonna keep saying it until it resonates. My emotions are for me to number one, understand where I am between me and reality as I observe it. Then I take what I analyze from my emotions and line it up with the truth, my source document for truth. Once I understand that how I feel is compliant with the truth, now it's time to have a conversation. However, if I realize that how I feel is non-compliant with the truth, I don't need to talk about nothing. I need to fix me. That's the thing. So when I'm talking about it now, I am talking about it based upon how I feel, validated by the truth, not just because I want to control. And trust me, one of the most interesting thing that gets under my nerves when I hear somebody say, "Oh, that person's controlling." Are they controlling you? Or are you just gonna get your way? Which one is it? Because that's really what it is in most cases. It's not that they're controlling. In most cases, it's that the person can't get their way. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some controlling people out there. Why you got that on? Take that off. You shouldn't be wearing that. Where you going? Where you going? Where you going with? That's too much for me.
And they can only control a person that lets them control them.
And I want to clarify by saying that, I wasn't meaning that it should like sugarcoat the conversation or anything. But like, as my wife is from Navajo, there are certain words that she may not understand.
Yeah.
So I may have to change my vocabulary when I'm having a different conversation so she'll understand. Or because we are in different age groups, there are certain words that I might can't use because she may not understand, and vice versa. So that was kind of sort of where I was going with. It's more so the communication piece. Doesn't take away. We're going to be direct and we're going to
Right.
get to the point. We're not sugarcoating nothing over here because what needs to be done needs to be done. The difficult, like Coach said, the difficult conversation needs to be had.
Right.
But so that's kind of what I was saying, is that I can't use the same words that I maybe could talk to Chris from, because me and Chris from the same hood. So we understand each other. We do blah, 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 blah. But when I'm talking to Gaddy and he from New York, so, I got to talk to him like, what's up, son? You know what I mean? I got to speak to him in his language.
You got to put son at the end of everything.
I got to make sure I got my Tim's on, make sure I got my blue jean shorts on, my triple
my
X
fitted.
t-shirt.
But
fitted
his face right
There
now.
you
Glued to the top, never come off.
Hey man, listen, we appreciate you guys. We value all you guys, and trust me, we look forward to interacting with you guys every week. If you're still with us, go ahead and hit the like button wherever you are, because this is that portion of the conversation which is a bittersweet moment for us. So with that being said, we're going into our final thoughts, and leading us off this evening with the final thoughts is none other than Reverend Gaddy himself.
Always think I clicked it and I didn't. This is pretty simple to me, I think. Tough and crucial conversations are part of everyday life, right? Every day somebody either does something to offend you, or you do something to offend somebody, or somebody you don't know, whatever the case may be. But they're part of our everyday life. And with that being said, we cannot navigate through our lives with our feelings first. So the reason why conversations go south, reason why relationships go south, is that we lead into everything nowadays with our feelings first. You got to put your feelings aside, and we have to address things through the aspect. This is how I look at it, right? Through the aspect of, we don't have failure as an option. This thing has to work, whether it's a job relationship, romantic relationship, a brotherhood relationship. We have to address every aspect of it as if we don't have the option of walking away from this relationship. And now, after you've done that and given it your best, you don't stick around and allow yourself to be maneuvered through somebody else's happiness. If you've addressed it and they continue to maneuver how they maneuver, even in offense to you, then maybe that's not the situation you need to be in. But even in that, that is not you navigating with your feelings. So I stick with that key major point, and I say, love you, peace.
At some point, we're all going to have difficult conversations, whether it be in our relationships, whether it be in our employment, with our children, with our parents. There are going to come plenty of times. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to have difficult conversations if you live long enough. How you approach the difficult conversation can truly determine the outcome of that relationship, that job, all of those different things that I mentioned earlier. So when you're approaching difficult relationships, it always works better when both people are willing to put the relationship or whatever else is the end goal above the feelings and above everything else. Because like I said, we're going to continue to have difficult conversations our entire life. There's no way around it. And like I also said, is how we choose to deal with those conversations, how we go through them, and the outcome and what's shared between the two parties or the multiple parties can drastically and will definitely have an outcome on not hold on, I'm messing up my words. My son in here. So he watched me for the first time. So I'm kind of weirded out right now, but not really. But anyway, like I said, all those things are important at the end of the day. Making sure that, like I said, we're going to have difficult conversations, making sure that when you go into these conversations, you go in them with open mind, effective communication, all those different things, so you can have a great outcome on the end of the difficult conversation.
My final thought is simple. Sometimes difficult conversations are necessary for growth. Do not run from them. Do not hide from them. Do not deflect when having them. Just have them and give the other party the benefit of the doubt, just like you would require the other party to give you the benefit of the doubt. That is my final thought.
As always, this is always a bittersweet moment for me. But in this particular conversation, one of the things I want to say, and I think this is the pivotal piece as we transition into next week to close off this conversation, your relationship requires you to grow. That's just it. If you're in a relationship and choosing to be complacent, you are not adding value to that relationship or anyone that you're in relationship with. Relationship requires you to grow. I believe relationships are the ultimate growth, the ultimate training ground. Therefore, difficult conversations now become necessary. If you understand you are lacking at a thing, you need to put forth the effort on your own to acquire the skills that make you better at that thing for the sake of relationship. That's just what it is. Too many times I've seen where there is just stagnation, where people are just existing in space and denying themselves the beauty of what a relationship can ultimately be if they value the other person in relationship more than they do themselves. And that's ultimately what it's all about. So again, put forth the effort, acquire the skills that you need to be better for the sake of relationship and the other person that you're in relationship, whether it's significant other, friend, cousin, in-law, outlaw, it doesn't really matter, right? We are here to serve others. And if you only view everything, especially relationship, through the lens of how it serves you, you're on the wrong end of the spectrum. So that being said, on behalf of all the brothers, and oh yeah, one other thing I want to say. Shout out to our brother Roland Walker, man. He had to attend the graduation tonight. So, brother, we just want to extend a warm. We miss you on this evening. We know that you're out there where you're supposed to be at, man, and we look forward to welcoming you back next week. So, you and Sister Olympia be safe out there. To everybody else, again, we value you. We appreciate you. You're always welcome to join us here every week, same time, same channel. And next week, we're going to close this out as we unpack navigating difficult conversations part 3. Have a great rest of your evening and a fantastic weekend. Until next week.